Not only is the universe stranger than we think, it is stranger than we can think. What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. The first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass God is waiting for you. There are things that are so serious that you can only joke about them. I remember discussions with Bohr which went through many hours till very late at night and ended almost in despair, and when at the end of the discussion I went alone for a walk in the neighboring park, I repeated to myself again and again the question, can nature possibly be so absurd as it seemed to us in these atomic experiments? The reality we can put into words is never reality itself. An expert is someone who knows some of the worst mistakes that can be made in his subject, and how to avoid them. Whenever we proceed from the known into the unknown, we may hope to understand, but we may have to learn at the same time a new meaning of the word understanding. Quantum theory provides us with a striking illustration of the fact that we can fully understand a connection though we can only speak of it in images and parables. I think that modern physics has definitely decided in favor of Plato. In fact, the smallest units of matter are not physical objects in the ordinary sense, they are forms, ideas which can be expressed unambiguously only in mathematical language. The atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real, they form a world of potentialities or possibilities rather than one of things or facts. In the history of science, ever since the famous trial of Galileo, it has repeatedly been claimed that scientific truth cannot be reconciled with the religious interpretation of the world. Although I am now convinced that scientific truth is unassailable in its own field, I have never found it possible to dismiss the content of religious thinking as simply part of an outmoded phase in the consciousness of mankind, a part we shall have to give up from now on. Thus in the course of my life I have repeatedly been compelled to ponder on the relationship of these two regions of the, for I have never been able to doubt the reality of that to which they point. We have to remember that what we observe is not nature in itself but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Revere those things beyond science which really matter and about which it is so difficult to speak. If nature leads us to mathematical forms of great simplicity and beauty, by forms, I am referring to coherent systems of hypotheses, axioms, etc., to forms that no one has previously encountered, we cannot help thinking that they are true, that they reveal a genuine feature of nature. You must have felt this too, the almost frightening simplicity and wholeness of the relationships which nature suddenly spreads out before us and for which none of us was in the least prepared. The positivists have a simple solution: the world must be divided into that which we can say clearly and the rest, which we had better pass over in silence. But can anyone conceive of a more pointless philosophy, seeing that what we can say clearly amounts to next to nothing? If we omitted all that is unclear, we would probably be left completely uninteresting and trivial tautologies. I am firmly convinced that we must never judge political movements by their aims, no matter how loudly proclaimed or how sincerely upheld, but only by the means they use to realize these aims. My mind was formed by studying philosophy, Plato and that sort of thing. The existing scientific concepts cover always only a very limited part of reality, and the other part that has not yet been understood is infinite. Whenever we proceed from the known into the unknown we may hope to understand, but we may have to learn at the same time a new meaning of the word understanding. Whether we like it or not, modern ways are going to alter and in part destroy traditional customs and values. In classical physics, science started from the belief, or should one say, from the illusion, that we could describe the world, or at least parts of the world, without any reference to ourselves. Only a few know how much one must know, to know how little one knows. Natural science, does not simply describe and explain nature, it is part of the interplay between nature and ourselves. In a darkened world no longer illuminated by the light of this center, God, technical advances are scarcely more than despairing attempts to make hell a more agreeable place to live in. This must be particularly emphasized against those who think that by spreading the civilization of science and technology even to the uttermost ends of the earth, they can furnish all the essential preconditions for a golden age. One cannot escape the devil so easily as that. The probability wave meant a tendency for something. It was a quantitative version of the old concept of potentia in Aristotelian philosophy. It introduced something standing in the middle between the idea of an event and the actual event, a strange kind of physical reality just in the middle between possibility and reality. Here the attention of the research workers is primarily directed to the problem of reconciling the claims of the special relativity theory with those of the quantum theory. The extraordinary advances made in this field by Dirac leave open the question whether it will be possible to satisfy the claims of the two theories without at the same time determining the Sommerfeld fine structure constant. The renouncing of life and immediacy, which was the premise for the progress of natural science since Newton, formed the real basis for the bitter struggle which Goethe waged against the physical optics of Newton. It would be superficial to dismiss this struggle as unimportant. There is much significance in one of the most outstanding men directing all his efforts to fighting against the development of Newtonian optics. We can never know anything. If we wanted to construct a basic philosophical attitude from these scientific utterances of Pauli's, at first we would be inclined to infer from them an extreme rationalism and a fundamentally skeptical point of view. In reality, however, behind this outward display of criticism and skepticism lay concealed a deep philosophical interest even in those dark areas of reality of the human mind which elude the grasp of reason. And while the power of fascination emanating from Pauli's analyses of physical problems was admittedly due in some measure to the detailed and penetrating clarity of his formulations, the rest was derived from a constant contact with the field of creative processes, for which no rational formulation as yet exists. Modern physics plays perhaps only a small role in this dangerous process of unification. But it helps at two very decisive points to guide the development into a calmer kind of evolution. First, it shows that the use of arms in the process would be disastrous and, second, through its openness for all kinds of concepts it raises the hope that in the final state of unification many different cultural traditions may live together and may combine different human endeavors into a new kind of balance between thought and deed, between activity and meditation.